Episode 3, The Price is Right. We open this episode with us coming to Martin Lee, working at his desk at Feast. I wanted to dictate a portion of this episode to Lee and see what he is doing during the day, as this character will be one of our most important characters going forward. It's a cold, rainy night. Lee sits at his desk at Feast, looking over piles of paperwork and bills and taxes that have been amounting over the past few weeks. In this scene, we see how Lee is very invested in the business world, but he also has a big personal life, which is making it difficult for him to balance the two. We learn that Lee actually had a wife who was managing most of the finances at Feast, but after she died, along with his 2 children, it was all up to Lee to carry on where she left off and continue working the angles at Feast. No matter what he does, it just seems like Feast's value is constantly decreasing. We then come to Lee meeting with the board of directors, who are frustrated that Feast hasn't produced anything that can really help the world. Sure, they have a few projects for charities, but it's nothing that is really groundbreaking. Lee eventually says that they cannot take Feast from him. It is all he has from his family, and they will have to grab it from his dead body. Eventually, Lee and the board come to an agreement. They will shut down more of Lee's more private projects in order to make room for everything else. However, this means several employees will be fired in charge of these sectors, which one of them is called Tony Masters. Masters being fired comes as a surprise to him, as we learn that he actually has a family that he is trying to provide for, but because of Feast cutting off his expenses, he is forced to leave. This infuriates Tony Masters and makes him very, very angry. There is only one man he blames, the man who is at the top and who makes all the decisions, Martin Lee. We then come to Peter walking out of the streets of Midtown and into New York. And this scene will show how, because he's been spending all his time as Spider-Man, his grades have been declining. Aunt May is worrying where he keeps going, and things for him are just not very well as Peter Parker, but that was the choice he made at the end of Season 3. There will also be a segment where Captain Stacy is being ordered by Jean DeWolf and several other members of the police department for Spider-Man's arrest. They are tired of him interfering all the time and want him brought in, but Stacy tries to stop these rumors from circulating because he knows who Spider-Man is. However, DeWolf is able to get the warrant signed, meaning that if anyone sees Spider-Man on the streets, he is to be brought in immediately and taken for arrest. Peter looks down. He doesn't feel good. He then has another flash of the Green Goblin and Gwen. That day he decided to give up being with her and be Spider-Man instead. It's eating him up inside and it hurts. Peter returns to Alchemax once again to start interning there, where he once again runs into MJ, who is taking classes, and a new student named Michael Morbius, who is also there. They talk about the attack on Alchemax earlier, and Michael's thinking why someone would do that. Peter thinks probably just Puma was crazy and decided to attack it, but Michael believes it goes a little deeper than that. He remarks on how Roger Kingsley was acting really strange before all this happened, meaning that there has to be something deeper going on behind the scenes. That's when MJ joins the conversation, saying that it makes sense that Kingsley was acting strange, as if you were kidnapped by a strange lunatic, you'd be acting weird too. And Michael isn't inclined to agree, but he decides he's going to keep an eye out for anything that Kingsley does if it's suspicious. Peter and MJ will catch up as they both go to their workstations, while Michael watches begrudgingly. Here we will once again see the chemistry between Peter and MJ develop as the two of them bounce really well off each other. We see how MJ is trying to make a move on Peter, but her knowledge of him being Spider-Man sort of clouds her mind, while Peter, on the other hand, is trying to distance himself as he isn't sure if he can date MJ with the knowledge that he is Spider-Man, after the realization that the people he loves will always pay. With Spider-Man back in the picture, that makes anyone close to Peter Parker a target. Peter will start to become more distant, and MJ will notice and pick up on it. From the corner of the room, Michael grows frustrated and asks if MJ knows where the store cupboard key is. MJ says she has no idea, and Michael decides to go pay Roger Kingsley a visit and thinks that maybe he will know where it is. Michael takes the elevator and walks upstairs to Kingsley's office. He knocks the door open slightly and asks Kingsley if he's got a minute, but there's no answer. He then sees a lot of things that concern him. There's a lot of floor plans on the building, and several of the curtains and blinds are closed. We see on one of the other chairs sits a man opposite Kingsley. This man seems to be talking to him. Michael assumes he's walked in on a meeting and apologizes. The man turns around to face Michael with an angry look. We've seen this man before. It's Tony Masters. Michael gives an apologetic smirk and closes the door. We then come to Gwen talking with her father about how Peter never showed up for her performance. Captain Stacy says that Peter has other things on his mind and is very busy, and the best thing she can do for him now is wait. Martin Lee is seen walking down the street when he is then attacked from above. A figure with a sword and a mask on him attacks him, knocking him to the ground. Lee panics out of fear, and Aunt May, who is working there, angrily tells him to back off right now. In an attempt to protect her friend, May pushes Lee into the limousine before urging the driver to step on it. And a chase scene then occurs. The man in the hoodie, which is referred to them as Taskmaster, is chasing Aunt May and Martin Lee through the streets of New York City. But strangely, Taskmaster manages to predict every one of the car's movements, managing to get ahead before he finally jumps on top of the limo. Taskmaster then rips the hoodie of the limo and stares Lee in the face. Lee angrily yells, "What do you want?" And Taskmaster says, "You." Taskmaster says that Martin Lee ruined his life. Lee said he doesn't even know who he is. While they are distracted talking, Aunt May looks for something to hit Taskmaster with. With no other option, May reaches over to the steering wheel and yanks it to one side, causing the car to skid to a sudden stop. Surprisingly, Lee smirks and says, "Good job." As we then come to Peter, Michael, and MJ, as it's nearly the end of the day at ESU. Peter then gets an alert on his phone that something is going down downtown and that Jameson wants him to get pictures of it. It's that Taskmaster person causing trouble. Peter's eyes widen. He thinks of Martin Lee, Aunt May. He then tells MJ and Michael that he just forgot. He's got this really important dentist appointment that he has to get to, and he'll be in trouble if he misses it. MJ knows this is a lie with her knowledge of Peter's secret, but doesn't say anything. Meanwhile, Taskmaster makes it to the top of the roof, but he's joined by Spider-Man, who swings in to confront him. Spider-Man quickly zooms in, kicking Taskmaster in the face and knocking him down, and says, "All these animal-themed villains are really coming in. Are you just a Kraven the Hunter ripoff?" Taskmaster will simply look up, analyzing Spider-Man's fighting style, and mutters, "Now I know how to beat you," before getting back up to face his challenge. As Spider-Man and Taskmaster engage in battle, Spider-Man will ask what he wants of Martin Lee. Taskmaster says that he took everything from him. Spider-Man quips that if he had $1 for every time a villain said that, he'd be a millionaire by now. Taskmaster says that he and his family got laid off, and now he's unable to provide for them all because of some selfish decision a corporate slug like Lee made. During the battle, Spider-Man and Taskmaster clash, and Spider-Man is subconsciously making more similarities between him and Puma. They both had enhanced tech of some sort. and they both were themed after something. It's almost as if there was someone else pulling the strings. Spider-Man manages to come out on top, webbing up Taskmaster. However, DeWolf and the cops arrive and shoot on Spider-Man on sight, and Captain Stacy is unable to do anything about it. The episode ends with Peter manages to escape, though, and swing that off he did it. He saved the day, but he is once again painted as a villain. He can't be trusted because he can't get close to MJ or Gwen or anyone else.